Welcome to Unsigned 518. I'm here with Joel Lilley. How's it going, man?
What's going on, man?
Going well. And we just met. And I don't know. Have we met in person before?
No, this is the first time.
Yeah.
Like, we're aware and we share some people.
Yeah, that we're aware. I mean,
Yes.
It is possible in just like our conversation before we got started. It is possible that probably at DAs or something that, that we were but
it's a very small pool that we swim in.
Yes.
And I've told people before, this is a type of town, an area where like you can't really mess up. Like if you mess up, you just got to like move out because that's it. There's nowhere to hide. So yeah, everybody knows everybody.
Everybody knows everybody and what's going on. And the town specifically we're talking about is Saratoga because I don't know, maybe people don't know this about me, but I lived in Saratoga before we moved out here to the country, and I was a big fan of the scene, and actually like the beginnings of this podcast happened in Saratoga due to like my seeing the music scene there, like specifically like with like James Gascoigne and Mary Lee and Ben Garrett and like all those guys that were like doing their own shit, and it was like I didn't realize that happened around here like at the time. And
I mean,
it
was actually pretty intense. I know for me, for my part. Certainly going through the mid to late 90s into the early aughts, people don't realize just how vibrant the scene was, which is not to like besmirch what the scene is now. There's a lot of people doing some really cool shit right now. But back then, I mean, for example, like the per capita, like the bar population per capita, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I think Saratoga had more bars per capita than any town in upstate New York. I mean, every other establishment downtown was a bar, and every other establishment, you'd walk downtown on a Friday, Saturday, and you just walk down Broadway, and every other storefront had a band in the window. And I know because my bands were some of those bands. We'd be playing. You look across the street, see some friends of ours playing opposite.
So let's take it back. I guess go back to that time, like to the 90s. Like when did you start getting I guess into that scene? And I guess just fucking tell us some stories about Saratoga in the 90s.
Yeah, no, I mean it was cool. It's funny. I was out on my own for the first time trying to figure my shit out. And a buddy of mine came to my place and we were hanging out, and he's like, "Yeah, who you playing with now?" Because I was always in bands, and I said, "I'm not actually playing with anybody right now." And he looked at me like I was fucking nuts. He's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Yeah, I just I don't know. I'm just trying to figure things out and whatever." He's like, "Dude, just you got to play with somebody. You're always playing music." And I said, "Well, I don't know." And he, back in the days when there were newspapers, remember those things? They were made out of paper and had words on them. I know, Brad like his whole stack.
Metroland's back. I got a whole stack of it. Well, yes, I do remember.
And he sat down on the couch in my joint and just like he started flipping through paper. He's like, "Look, there's a band looking for a drummer." And I was like, "Dude, no good band ever." Got together by advertising in the back of like a local rag, except of course very notoriously the Pixies. That's how they got together, which I learned
at UMass.
Yes.
And it's funny, like that was like now, like nowadays this shit happens all the fucking time.
Oh, yeah.
Like on Craigslist or whatever, you need a drummer, you're like, "Hey, I need a fucking drummer." Like you put it out there. But you're right, like that is like an interesting component that I guess I hadn't thought of, is how you use the media.
Yeah.
That was available at the time.
Yeah. Everything. And I still, part of my ethos is DIY. I really enjoy that. It's an element of what I'm doing these days that I'm sort of treasuring and I'm relishing and I revel in it, is that, when you're doing everything yourself, for yourself, there's no expectations, there's no labels that you have to ascribe to in any way. There's no arguments to have about the material or the content or whether or not there's a single.
Mm-hmm. Or whether or not the songs vibe together.
Yeah, it's DIY. I have the equipment that I have. Those are the only boundaries, or the boundaries of what I have in front of me when I head into the studio. I go in there with my cup of coffee, and it's just me, and a whole room full of instruments and my recording gear, and whatever happens, happens, and there's no parameters except if it makes me happy, then I go with it.
Right.
Straight DIY. You know what I mean? And that's how it was back in the day. And when I answered the article because my friend said, "Oh, I should do this." I said, "What the fuck? Sure, why not?" And it was a lark. I was like, "Sure, what the hell? I'll do it." And I think it was a week later, I was on stage with Dryer opening for Superchunk.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure it was a week. BC, Bobby Carlton. He came downtown, met me at DA's, which had been my bar when I was in my, from 17 to 20. It's a true story. 17 to 21 or whatever. And then DA's became our band Dryer. That was our bar for, entirety of the time that we were together. Not that we've ever broken up. We're doing our thing as we're doing it. But actually, if you go in there now, you still see there's headshots of us on the ceiling. If you go into DA's, you look above the bar. There's a band photo of us up there, and on the jukebox, I assume they still have the jukebox. I haven't been there in a bit.
They do have the jukebox. My band just played there.
Doing a super dark jam.
Yeah, doing super dark.
That's cool.
It's so much fucking fun to play there. Too.
Yeah,
and especially as someone that used to hang out there.
Yeah. Speaking of DIY, we told those guys, not told those guys, but Travis and everyone were like, "Yeah, you guys should have bands," and they didn't have bands for a long time, and I think they've been rocking with the super dark stuff.
It's been a while, for what, 5-6 years.
Yeah,
something like that.
They're doing real good with
and
that.
The shows are like we were talking to. One of the guys there, and it was like, what kind of crowd do you think? Because it was like a snowy or a cold evening, not a snowy evening, and they're on a fucking Monday.
Oh yeah,
and he was like, every single one is busy.
Yeah,
he's like, every single one. Like, there's people that come out consistently. There's a consistent crowd, and they don't care who's playing or what style of music is playing. They're coming out to see. What style? What I mean?
They're coming out for the art of it all. They're coming out for the art of it all, and you gotta give props. They've done a really fantastic job.
They really fucking have. They're so much fun to play, and like the lineups they do are always so fucking cool.
Yeah,
like they bring in some really good shit.
True story.
And on a Monday, people fucking consistently show up. So go out to DA's.
Yeah, check out
Monday.
Check out Super Dark. They do a really great job.
Yeah. Totally. All right, so we're in the 90s. You're with Dryer. You're opening for Superchunk. Where was that at?
That was at Bogies, I believe.
Right.
I think that was Bogies.
Nice. So right out of the gate, you're playing shows, and how was, I don't even know the number of bars in Saratoga has probably stayed relatively the same, but they've switched to restaurants.
Yeah,
right? Like the number of straight up just bars doesn't exist, but there's still drinking establishments.
There are, but even that, I'd say there's
I'd
say there's half as many bars as those bars. The number of those bars that host live music. It's like half of those.
And like there's none on fucking Broadway anymore.
No, and they're all cover bands. They're all shit bands.
Right.
No offense, cover people. I get it.
I mean, yeah.
But like I get it, man.
I've played in many a cover
been there,
band.
Been there, done that. Yeah. But like, it's I can tell you as a person who lives in a fifth floor walk up in downtown Saratoga, when the windows are open, I can hear all the bands, and it's shit music.
Right.
And just
it's sometimes that stuff that, like, it hurts your soul a little bit, like playing it. Like I said, I've played in cover bands. I've played in shit cover bands that are still active and playing.
Look,
in
the struggle's real,
Saratoga.
Man. The
like,
struggle's
I get
real.
it. Yeah, I get
being
it.
a musician is second to being an actor or a comedian. Third to being the comedian. It's a tough road to hoe for most of us. And if you're lucky, you can find a lane where you're happy. I've been fortunate. Dryer, we're like family. Me and Bob BC and Rach. Brian, who joined the band in the aughts as a second guitarist and vocalist, who's a accomplished musician in his own right. He came from playing with the Winter Pills and all sorts of really cool gigs over in Mass. We're like family, as you know. Dryer had its ups and downs. We did the like breakup on the road in, I think it was like Detroit or Chicago, someplace. We did all that stuff back in the day. But now, we hang out. I'm catching up with Bob. I think we're having a beer next week. Rach actually recorded some vocals for one of my songs off of the last record, the record from this fall. She recorded vocals for a song, and that was because she was, we were just hanging out. We were having some lunch and a beer and whatever. I was telling her what I was up to. I was like, hey, you want to come in and just like check some stuff out? I brought her in the studio, sat down, and she's like, oh, this is cool. I'm like, yeah, like here's this song I was working on. You want to just like, I don't know, here's a mic, just hang out for a while and lay some shit down and see what you do. And that ended up being one of the singles I released. So
nice.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess I've learned enough about the scene in the '90s in Saratoga, but like I caught a little of it. It was more like early 2000s. I worked for EQX and used to come over this way to like host. We would host shows, and I used to have the keys to the EQX van, and I'd come and throw out fucking T-shirts and stickers and like mingle with people and do live broadcasts. And it did really change. Like that was 22, 23 years ago, and I mean, a lot of those whole blocks of entertainment venues just don't even exist anymore. Are just like, so. Do you think that hurt local bands, or do you think that kind of pushed them to broaden the scene? Like, might that have helped bridge the gap between the quote unquote Saratoga music scene and the Albany music scene, and
I think. To my mind, and my personal experience, like I said, Dryer was active, highly active, from the early to mid '90s through to the aughts, and then when Dryer, we didn't so much break up as we stopped being a functional band. Bob and I started the 615s. And we recorded a couple of records. And so I got to, while all that was happening, we were noticing what was happening with the scenes. And it was not just here. It was not just the Albany scene. It was all across the country. Some of our favorite clubs were shutting down.
Right.
Places that we'd head out to Chicago, we'd head out to Detroit, we'd head out west, and whenever. Clubs we played there, Boston, clubs we played there all the time were no longer there. The scenes were changing, like the laws for everything were changing. People's attitudes were changing, and it was I feel like the scene was no longer friendly to independent music. That's what I think was going on. It had a lot to do with what was happening with the labels. I mean, between Dryer and the 615s, I can tell you we had a lot of issues with label stuff. Manipulation. I mean, there was Dryer, actually, we were very close to being signed with one of the majors. I forget if it was Capital Atlantic, but the deal fell through because they flat out wanted us to compromise the band. And I think like as a full-grown adult, as much as I am a full-grown adult now, whatever that means exactly, I think probably I would have been like, yes, we'll do whatever. And it's sad to say I probably would have done that. But at the time when we still had, our youth, and then we were standing up for something, we said, fuck no, we're not. They wanted us to switch the lineup around. They wanted us to change with the focus and make one person out front and everybody else in the background. And we were egalitarian. We were a trio, when we were out on the road, it was the three of us against the entire fucking world. We were not going to sacrifice that for the fact just to get on your fucking stupid label and be supported by you.
Right, because then it's not really you on the label.
No, it's not us.
It's
like if
you
they're pushing,
playing whatever the role that they want you to play.
And if they're pushing you around that much and you're not even signed yet, what's going to happen once you're on the label?
Totally.
What's going to happen?
When they fucking own you, and they're like, oh, you owe us this much money for your tour or for your records.
It happened to us. The couple of labels that we're on, they really, it was very unpleasant. I would say it was very, very unpleasant. Yeah, it's true. And we know
that's such a gentle way of putting it.
No, it's just like
it's very unpleasant.
The number of bands that we know who were able to benefit from, from labels at that point in time ended up owing the labels money. They ended up. Right. I mean, really, it was a shitty system, and we've seen what happened. It blew up. And now we're in this strange new world where nothing makes sense for everyone. There's a billion bands. Everybody's screaming into the void all the time, trying to get noticed. And so I'm here. I go by the moniker of Cuddly Bear because I needed a way to separate who I was sort of recognized as being back in the day from who I believe musically myself to be now, which is not to say like I said, myself, my former bands, we were like family, and I couldn't be more proud of the work. Dryer, we made some really cool stuff.
Right.
It's a lot of records, a lot of singles, a lot of shows, a lot of fun, and we made some really cool stuff. Same with the 615s, which was a very short-lived band, but for the couple of records that we made, we had a lot of attention down in Brooklyn, a lot of good times, and a lot of music. I'm proud, very proud of all that material. But when Cuddly Bear came to be, it's funny. You think you know yourself, right? And I thought I knew myself. And then the pandemic rolled around. And, I found myself engaging in some remote projects with people, which meant having to learn a new skill set, which is, okay, so now I'm going to be like recording and sending stuff back and forth to people digitally, figuring this stuff out. Okay, cool. So I'll do this. So let me buy this equipment. And at the end of it all, I think that those projects themselves, worked to varying degrees. But what came out of it was that I'd find myself every weekend in this cave, this den, right? That I had carved out in our apartment, surrounded by instruments, and obsessively every weekend, going in at 11 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, grab some coffee, wouldn't even be speaking yet, really, not, but I just go in, I'd pick up usually a guitar, whatever the keys, the mandolin, whatever was there, drums, whatever I was feeling, I would just pick it up and just start playing. And I just start hitting record. And out of that, I realized, oh, shit. I thought I knew myself. It turns out I didn't, right? The fog of youth. You think you know yourself. I know myself. Everybody else go fuck yourself. No, man.
You also change a lot.
Oh, yeah.
I say every 10 years, you're a fucking different person.
Oh,
and I believe
different.
that, yeah.
And for me, again, the reason I came up with Cuddly Bear is because it's not that I'm trying to dissociate myself from, I'm Joel Lilley, drummer for Dryer, 615s, backup vocals, all that stuff. This is another thing. This is sort of, it's the meest me. You know what I mean? It's the me that's not jibing with other people. There's bands. It's like being in a family and having conversations all the time, right? You're musically having conversations with the other folks in the band, right? You're back and forth, holding hands, things, being disparate about things, whatever. And then that soup, whatever comes out of that soup, that's what the band is. When it's just me, it's all those crazy fucking influences. Everything I've told people before, it's I grew up, I'm actually, I've been in upstate since 89. I've been here forever. I actually grew up in Philadelphia. I'm a Philly boy. And so I came up in a place that was cacophonous, right? It's Philadelphia. I'd walk down the street. There'd be reggae playing and weed smoke blowing out the windows. There's the Chinese restaurant across the street. There's the train going overhead. People with a beatbox walking down the street. It's constant influence all the time. It's never silent until about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. It's always loud. there's that. There's people driving down the street. They're playing, whatever music is popular at the time. I'm driving down the street with my mom. She's blasting, like some easy listening from like the 70s or 80s or whatever. And like, regardless of how you feel about it, it all shows up, right? I'm not like a church dude. It's not my thing. But I went to Sunday school when I was a kid. I was on the choir. I was in the Sunday school choir, right? It all comes out, when I'm mixing my songs down, and I've come up with like I said, I don't have any like parameters. I sort of jumped in this thing, and now I realize sort of like, I guess I'm about 3 years into it now. Is that I do have like this process, and part of the process is going in and listening to all the tracks and like extrapolating what's going on and listening to how all the groupings of, the rhythm section, all the guitars, the vocals, what they're all doing. And I break it down. And at one point I listened, I was like, God damn, that's a Sunday school choir. I'm listening to like 8 or 9 vocal tracks stacked. I'm like, wow. I'm like, it's not intentional. I'm not doing it. I'm just doing whatever I feel like is happening in the moment.
But
I'm
it's
like,
like kind of the rule of that kind of music, you mean? Like the way the harmonies were stacked or
yes,
whatever?
Like all the influences, like whether I want those influences to be there or not, they're there. I'm like,
your
that's
foundation.
What that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hear
tough
like
to change the foundation.
Yeah. I was listening to one section. I'm like, well, that's easy listening. That's some shit that like I had to listen to when I was a kid, and now it's just there. And like you take it in and you spit it back out via your own soul or whatever, you know what I mean? So,
well, can we I do want to hear more about Cuddly Bear as a project, but can we kind of kick off that conversation maybe with a song?
Yeah, man, that sounds cool.
Which one do you want to play?
Oh man, jeez Louise, wow. I guess we should probably do one from the release from a couple of months ago. I'm kind of prolific. I'm doing about 4 records a year at this point. Well, you know what, man? I love it. It makes me feel whole. So, how about let's go with For You Know Who. That's kind of a cool one. Sure, why not?
All right. Well, let's check out For You Know Who, Cuddly Bear, and then we'll be right back to talk some more with Joel.
Just on the corner of madness, madness, madness.
It's but a question of time. Not me, not you. And were we falling in line? Couldn't see. True, a splinter in the mind's eye. Could it be? See it through. Now what are we gonna do? Couldn't see. Gonna see.
All right, that was for You Know Who, Cuddly Bear. And, Joel, we could talk about, I was almost going to be like, well, let's talk about the album. But since there's been fucking 4 of them in the last chunk of months, maybe it's a little more interesting for everybody to hear about how you make the albums. Because you kind of mentioned when we were listening to that last song how you've got a little different process, I guess, in the way you do it.
Yeah, it's pretty odd. It's funny. I had a meeting with a buddy of mine, one of my old bandmates, and we just went out to have some dinner and have a beer. And this is after I released the first record, which is Evil Era. That was New Year's last year. And he's like, yeah, I never really chat with my friends about their projects. Because we've got, we all know so many people that are making music, and we're just all doing our thing.
Right.
But he wanted to chat because he's like, I think he'd never really heard what I did on my own, which of course he didn't. I didn't either, and he was really surprised at what it was, I think. And he wanted to hear a little bit, I think, about how I went about it, because it did seem unusual in comparison to the stuff. I wrote songs for Dryer back in the day, but they were all, Dryer was a pop punk outfit, and with some slight prog stuff that would happen. But the stuff I wrote was really straightforward, and I think pretty immature, to be quite honest with you.
Some of my favorite music is immature pop punk. I'm fucking 52 years old.
Look,
wearing a
man,
Blink-182 shirt.
I'm not even saying I'm a grown up now. Let's be honest about it. It is what it is.
Look where we are.
Yes, I know.
Is this an adult's room?
I love it, dude. All about it. But so I sort of write on a continuum, and so what happens typically, or what has happened. And what's happening now, as we speak, I'm mixing the next record, which I'm hoping to put out on New Year's this year.
All right.
And at the same time, I'm writing a record that's slated for release in March. Right? I try to do them once, four times a year, so every 3 months. And what has happened is that I started off a couple of years ago, really writing. Originally I was writing stuff, and then I would I'd send WAV files to a buddy of mine I've known since high school. My first band was with a couple buddies of mine from high school back in Philly, and we were all, I think I was 13 when I started playing, and we started a band before we knew how to play instruments. It's that sort of situation.
Same.
Yeah. No, man, I was musically inclined to a certain extent. My mom, rest in peace, Mom. She made me do lots of stuff I didn't want to do when I was a kid, but now I get it. So she used to make me go to this music class every Saturday and learn Suzuki method. And I never thought anything about it then, but now I appreciate it after the fact. And then in high school, I played violin. Yep, that was me, fifth chair, whatever, violin. And I got to be 13, and I swear to you, like a lightning from the blue, I was like, I don't think I'm ever going to get a girlfriend playing, fifth chair violin. But if I played a cool instrument like drums, maybe. And so, we were hanging out in the basement, me and my crew in high school, and we're like, let's start a band, because what we would do anyway is we'd get together on Saturdays. We'd go to like fucking Burger King or whatever the fuck, and hang out and get stupid food and drinks to go back to my buddy's house, and we'd spin plates. We'd go to the record store, and then we would like play records all afternoon and listen to records and bullshit around and do whatever. And that became, maybe we should start a band and make music. And so we made crazy music about crazy stuff we had no idea about, because we're all like 13, 14 years old. What did we know? But like, that was super formative stuff for me. That was where it came from, And I learned how to play music really by being in bands, by jamming with other people, bouncing off of them, that energy and that whatever. That's how I learned.
And a lot of that is also the encouragement, like, because doing any like art shit, is, there's a soul tax a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, it takes a lot to put yourself out there like that. But when you're amongst other people that are also doing it, it helps, because it's less embarrassing to like, I wouldn't be able to, even now, as someone who's been playing guitar for fucking 35 years, if you put me in the room with a bunch of people that weren't and didn't know anything about music and weren't music people at all, and you were like, play the guitar and play a song for these people, I'd be like, fuck no.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do
believe
it.
Believe me, I know. Like, I was a sculptor for 15 years professionally.
Right, wow.
I worked for a couple of different companies, and I went solo for about 3 years. And one of the guys I worked with, he had been my boss at the first company. At one point, he was like, "You should have stuck with music," and I was like, "Oh, I don't know what he." And I realized later on, he wasn't saying that I wasn't good. I mean, I'm pretty good. What he was saying is that when you're doing this as a business, you will come to hate it. And he was right. I stopped sculpting 3 years ago now. I told clients I had, shut the studio down. I'm not doing it anymore. And I stopped because it didn't bring me joy anymore.
Right.
I was taking I was about to sign on to a project, and my wife was like, "Why are you doing that?" I was like, "Well, because she's like, "But you hate it." I'm like, "No." She's like, You hate it every single time. You complain about it the entire time." And I was like, "You're right."
Yeah.
And like, it stopped bringing me joy, so I stopped doing it. And that coincided, quitting doing that and picking music up again happened right around the same time. I think it's not a coincidence that all that energy went into something that mattered to me. And so I went from sending wave files to buddies of mine and then being like, "That's pretty cool, man. That's wild, whatever, blah, blah, blah," to somebody saying like, "Oh, you should do something with it because blah, blah, blah." And I looked, and I'm sitting on, I won't tell you how much music, but I'm sitting on a lot of music. And I'm like, another buddy of mine he's a very accomplished musician. He's flies around the globe. He teaches classes, and he's a crazy guy. And he's like, you can't not put stuff out into the world. You gotta, if it's there, if it means something to you, what's the use of it sitting in a? And so when I write, typically the records tend to be around 15 songs, and of those 15 songs, 5 songs are sort of already mostly done. I pulled them from this well of stuff I've been working on, and they're sort of sitting in a folder, right? Literally manila folders, and then folders on my computer. And with those as the starter, like you're baking something, those are like the starter. I then have 5 songs that are like kind of like halfway done. And then, so I'll be working on those songs, and I'll be revisiting the first songs, and those are now influencing each other. And then in the process of finishing that group of 10 songs, I write songs in between, because I'm still working. My process is I get up and I pick up the guitar or whatever, and I just start. I see whatever happens. Very, very often, I'm totally serious about this. Like the power of your unconscious mind, right? Instead of like fucking getting up and being like, it's not working. If it doesn't work, I put it down. I shift gears, do something else.
You should, yeah.
But before I even wake up, I pick up the guitar, I have a sip of coffee, and I just play. I just play.
And you record it. You know?
I just play, and if there's an earworm, if there's something that like just appeals to me, whatever the fuck it is, because the first thing I do, you were right about recording. The first thing I do is I walk in, I got my coffee in my car, and I turn everything on.
Right.
Everything is set. So if something happens, all I literally have to do is push the record button and start going. And very often, a lot of my songs, it's really funny, a lot of those songs are the first 4 or 5 chords I played that day. I get up, I just and I'm like, oh, that's the thing. Let's work it. And then, and so again, I got the 5 songs, the next 5 songs, and then the songs that happen while I'm writing those. And so they all happen sort of on this continuum. I'm always working on songs that have a root in the past, the present, and then what's happening as I'm making all that happen. So, this next record, the one that's coming out on New Year's, is actually the record that I was going to release first. This record I wrote and recorded a year and a half ago. And when I was right about to put it out, I got on this streak and wrote a whole bunch of stuff. And I was like, I want to put this out. And so I put the first record aside, and I just started writing a new record, which turned into basically, it's sort of like a trilogy. I mean, those first 3 records that I released, I all consider those to be part of one whole thing. And so those are in the pipe. They're out there now. And now I've gone back. I'm remixing the very first record and putting that on New Year's.
That's wild.
And while I'm doing that, I'm going in and, like yesterday morning, I got up and I was writing songs for the record for March, which now looks like it's going to be a double album because it's already big. It seems to be getting bigger and bigger. So I'm just going with it. Why not? Nobody's telling me. No, I don't have to answer to anybody.
Yeah, nobody's telling you anything. That's the best, is that you could just let it all out. Yeah. And being that nobody's telling you, like, you get to keep the joy. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not like somebody's saying, hey, fucking Joel, wake up and go do those songs. Yeah. You're being like, I want to go get into this pattern of creating. And, like, I'm kind of jealous. Like, if because I don't have the, like, technical know-how to like operate in a studio. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a musician, but I'm not someone who could mix and master and, like, in that sense. So like any of my recordings are always just like a microphone and an acoustic guitar. Yeah. And that's usually where it stops.
Yeah. I mean, I felt the same way. And I can tell you, going back to the days, like I said, Dryer, how many records did we do? 5, 6? I'm not sure. We did a good number of records, and then the 615s, I think we recorded 2 official full lengths, I believe. And then, there are lots of singles in and around there and a lot of stuff. The studio was my least favorite part back in the day. I loved being on stage.
Yeah, I mean,
the live experience and like getting feedback from like the audience, just getting up there and I told people, I remember people thinking, "Oh, it's so cool, you're in a band." I'm like, you have no idea how much work it is being in a band. Like, I love it, but being in a band, if you're actually doing it, means you spend 20 hours a week rehearsing, writing. For every 45 minutes to an hour you get to spend on stage.
Yeah.
On
and like
Friday
even
night,
like, I only play, like I said, we play maybe fucking 8 to 10 gigs a year or whatever. Yeah. And even that is a ton of fucking work. And we're not doing it for anything other than just like, fun. But if, you were out touring, can anybody listening, a lot of people listening are in local bands, but like picture like what you were doing out, you're going out to fucking California and going out west and like putting these big tours together. Like, think of how much work that is.
Yeah, so much.
When if you compare to going to play fucking DAs on a Monday, takes a lot out of me.
We had like back in the day. It's very funny. I kept a lot of the old like Metro, and I think Dryer was on the cover of Metro like 3 times maybe.
Nice.
And I kept those because they're funny. I think they're very funny to go back and listen, read like our interviews and such. There was a point in time when we were sort of, we weren't reviled on the scene, but we took a lot of flack from some of the other bands. Because I think they thought that we were being like bratty or whatever. We weren't. We were being real because these other bands, we knew these guys. We know these guys. It's fine. And petty rivalries happen and whatever. But the fact was that we would do our thing and we play these shows, and these other bands, they would be the biggest fish in the smallest fucking pond, and they get up there and just swinging their dicks around, and we're like, come on, what are you guys doing? Like, who do you think you are exactly? What band do you think you are, and do you think anybody's going to remember you in 20 years? They're not, by the way. And the proof was in the pudding, because Dryer would go out there, we'd put ourselves out there, we'd go to cities where nobody fucking knew us. If we picked up 1 or 2 fans at a show, we were happy about it. We go places where, we played some crazy shows because of the punk edge. So we ended up some wild metal shows and stuff where people clearly wanted to like hurt us. and we'd walk out of there, and not only would they not have hurt us, we'd have picked up a couple of fans. You'd be like, oh, these guys are kind of cool. Sweet. Mission accomplished. These other bands, they would hit the road and break up immediately.
Right.
I'm not even kidding.
I can
think of 2 bands that gave us flack, and they're, oh, you guys suck, and we're awesome. They went on the road. One of them, I think, lasted 1 week. One maybe lasted 2 weeks, and they broke up on the road because they couldn't handle it. They didn't understand. This is work, man. We love it, but it's work, and you're not going to go out there.
And it's not just work, but it's something like, especially like out on the road, it's something that you can't just turn off.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like work. Oh, like you go to work, and then when you leave work, you leave work at work. When you're out on the road, like you're at work 24 hours a fucking day.
Yeah, and it's a labor of love. If you treat it as anything else other than a labor of love, you are fucked.
Right.
You know what I mean? So. Yeah. So when I write, it's a whole thing, and I had no expectations. Like it was an accident that I did in the first place, and now I'm just recognizing what I've come to understand is the pattern of how I write things, and that seems to work for me, and it makes me happy, and that's all that I really care about, I guess.
Awesome. Well, I think we should hear another song.
Oh, that's cool.
So which one did you want to do?
Oh, let me see. How about you give for what you get? That's kind of a weird one. I like that one. It's not. No, it's not. I don't mean to say it's not weird. It's just I like unconventional song structure sometimes. So I think this one is one of those. I like it.
All right, and it was You Give What You Get.
You give for what you get.
You give for what you get.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's check out You Give for What You Get, Cuddly Bear, and then we'll be right back to wrap it up with Joel.
What you give for what you get, Geppetto still, the puppets, yes, a war of wills, straight out your mind. A symphony, a sacrifice, from now on out, we'll say it twice. Hold on until it's time, the prophecy.
That was You Give for What You Get, Cuddly Bear. And Joel, I want to thank you so much for coming out and doing this. It was a really cool conversation, and I think you should come back sometime when we can shoot the shit a little more.
Yeah,
about,
man. That'd be cool.
About the way things were and the difference between then and now. It's really good insight for local bands to kind of hear what happens outside of our scene.
Yeah.
Like, 'cause it's not always fucking peaches and roses.
Yeah,
or
man.
whatever,
No,
but-
it's hard work, but
Yeah.
I think just do it for the right reasons. Do it because you love it. You know what I mean? That's what I do.
But before we go, I want to give you the chance, like I do with all my guests, to say your gratitude. So, microphone is all yours.
Cool. Yeah, man. Look, I want to thank all of my crews again. The Dryers and 615s. What's up, guys? Both projects never really ended. We're still talking about doing stuff. I think Dryer's gonna be releasing a couple of covers for like a benefit, basically. But we'll talk to you about that when that actually happens.
Actually, you should hit up Schwinghammer for that.
Yes, yes. We'll talk to BJ. Schwinghammer. I'm gonna thank my mom because rest in peace. She passed away before this whole thing, and I think she would have dug it the most. And thank her for making me do lots of shit when I was a kid. It turns out she was right. It actually benefited me because here I am doing stuff that I love. And I want to thank my wife because she's also an artist and she's awesome. And she's been putting up with me, and she's been putting up specifically not just with me. She's been putting up with Cuddly Bear because I'm sort of like it's like a different animal. I get there's a whole different headspace I have, which is why I have a moniker. Like I said, it's just I feel it's a me that exists in and to itself. It's not the me from before. It's the me that was simmering underneath, sort of. My wife has been very, very patient with Cuddly Bear and his excesses. So thanks, babe. Appreciate it. And yeah, man. If you come across me on the socials, Instagram, and all the streamers, if you want to really support, come check me out I can't think. Yeah. Just come check out Cuddly Bear.
Yeah.
KUDDLYBAR. And yeah, come like and follow and do all that stuff, man. Be cool.
Oh, yeah. All right. So he is Joel Lilley. I am Andy Scullin. This is Unsigned518. I'll see you on the road. Unsigned518 is produced and hosted by me, Andy Scullin. New episodes are available every week wherever you stream podcasts. If you would like to help support the show, please like and subscribe wherever you are listening, or you could buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/unsigned518. If you would like to advertise on the show, send me an email at unsigned518@gmail.com. And to be a guest on the show, reach out to me through Instagram at unsigned518. Take care of one another, and I'll see you next week.